Alright guys, we are here with Will Schusterick, bringing you first round coverage of the 2015 Glass Blown Open. Welcome, Will.
Thanks for having me.
Alright, Will, this card consists of former GBO winners. What year did you win it in?
I won 2012 and 2013.
So two-time champion. Here we are starting off with the 2014 champion, Simon Lizotte. Simon, of course, known for his recent world record distance.
860 feet, I think is what it is.
Crazy. Alright, so there he is playing, I guess he's playing the far right side, correct?
Yeah, there's a pretty wide open gap on that right side. There's water towards the top of the hill where the long grass is. We're out of bounds. There's an OB creek where those trees are to the left of where his disc landed. But for me right here, I'm throwing a 750 series H3. I'm trying to keep it wide. You have a lot better angle. When you go a little bit further towards the long grass, I'm trying to throw a sidearm towards the basket, trying to just stay low and give myself a chance.
Yeah, it looks like he stayed pretty well to the right for that line.
Yeah, I think this is one of the harder par fours on the course. Where those trees are right there, it's out of bounds. You can see the cart path going along to the left as well.
Alright, and we got local McCabe playing, looks like the same line.
Yeah, you see probably a lot of the pros were going that way unless you're left-handed.
And here we have last to tee, Nate Doss. Recently got on Sports Center top 10 for his ace at hole 1 at the Memorial.
Yeah, that was awesome to see.
Making disc golf history right there. And that makes 4. All 4 of y'all aiming for that right side lane.
We all landed within probably 45 feet of each other.
Yeah, pretty well executed. And Nate's first with his upshot, throwing a flick up that hill. That's a pretty tough upshot.
Yeah, it's probably a little over 300 feet. Where he landed, he was just in bounds. Actually, the line is down towards the water.
So they put a pretty generous line down almost on the water's edge. And
Eric was talking about him. He drew the line himself across the entire course, so he was telling us exactly of the out of bounds. On this shot, I actually threw the same disc that I teed off with, the H3.
All right, and you sat pretty well there on the hill. Simon going with the flick.
Yeah, Simon almost goes out of bounds, but he hits the...
He got a lucky tree hit right there. Eric with his upshot, just putting it under the basket for the tap-in par.
It was a little breezy towards the top of this dam, I guess is what it is.
Oh man, Simon crazy off the knee, up against the trees for the bird. And there's Nate still in bounds, just right on the water's edge, right at the top of the basket.
Yeah, this putt, a little bit of a left to right wind, so it's a little bit easier to go for it up the hill.
Nice birdie. Good start. And then here we'll have Nate cleaning up his par.
4 is not a bad score on starting out on hole 1 here. I think I saw a lot of people go out of bounds off the tee or on their second shot. Seemed a pretty common hole to get a 5 on.
Yeah. Here we have hole 2, 780 feet, par 4. A lot of water hazards on this one.
Yeah, there was a good wind off the tee. I think I remember you can see the flag there moving a little bit of a crosswind. With the headwind, it's a little bit harder because you want to get, obviously you want to get as far as you can off the tee, but instead of being on that left side, I could get a little bit more.
Yeah, what'd you throw on the right?
That was my 400G D3. I threw that a lot off the tee.
And McCabe, similar line, came out a little early, seemed like. Didn't stand up quite as long as the first 2 drives, but still safe in a good spot right in the fairway.
Yeah, the OB on the left side is pretty forgiving. You don't see a lot of people go out of bounds left or right on this hole. If anything, they're going to go OB short in that water inlet. It's probably about 430, 440 feet to that water.
And Nate first with his upshot. How far out do you think?
I think this is headwind 350, 360 feet. You can see the cart path is behind it, about 25 feet. The water's probably about the same distance before. Eric threw a great shot right here.
Oh yeah.
It's a little bit harder being on the left side of that fairway because you have to go so far around the tree.
Yeah, not get hung up.
Yeah, you're not going to go straight at the basket from that point.
Simon playing the hyzer line.
I think me, Simon, and Nate all landed near the same spot right here.
Yeah. He put a little bit wide right, but
yeah,
still about pin high.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
And what is this you're throwing?
This is a 750 H1.
Okay.
Surprisingly enough, I didn't throw that a lot this round. There wasn't really a whole lot of wind.
Yeah.
Simon with another good putt.
Yep, Simon for the bird. And Nate for his birdie look.
Yeah, I saw somebody walking behind the basket. I don't think they noticed that Nate was putting.
And Will with his birdie. Very nice putt. Eric, easy tap in birdie. And Nate tapping in his par. Alright, here we're on to hole 3, 543 feet, par 4.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the easier par 4s on the course. Somebody, I think Jeremy, was talking about how Macbeth had an ace run on this hole.
543 feet, ace run.
Yeah, I mean, for most top pros, you're going to see them get between 440 to 520 feet or so, and at least have an easy look to get up and down for a 3. There's not a whole lot of danger. There's not out of bounds close to the right or to the left, so you're going to see a lot of 3s and maybe a handful or less 2s.
Eric playing pretty much straight at it, playing that long turnover shot. Just get past the tree. That's a good spot to be for your 3.
Yeah, with the wind not playing a factor at all really today, it's you're not going to see anybody make a mistake on this hole.
All right, Eric first with his upshot. Has to play a hyzer line around that tree, that last tree protecting the basket, but puts it under there no problem. Nate a little further to the right so he could go a little more straight at it. And Simon, similar look. Actually a good run at it too. And you're just playing the jump putt. Were you running at that or just trying to get it under for the 3?
I'd like to think I was running at it, but...
And there's Simon for the birdie. Nate with his birdie. Eric and All-Star Bird. That's pretty short par 4, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I
but
think
that's what they call it. So.
Yep.
All right, hole 4, 437 feet, par 3.
Yeah, this is uphill. You know, this is one of those holes where you really don't want to get in trouble and stay out to the right across the path because you can really rack up your number pretty quick.
Yeah, a sidewalk runs right along the right side of that basket all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. You have the short grass on the right side, so even if you do keep it wide, you can, as long as you have a decent angle coming in towards the basket, you're going to skip and be safe. Practice on this one, I threw a couple of them long. This was the only course that I didn't play twice in practice. So I was kind of going off a couple of the shots that I played the day prior, or 2 days prior.
Eric looked like he got a little bit early release, put it right in that tree, but still safe.
Yeah.
And Nate playing it a little bit wider than the rest of y'all, but he got
Yeah, this is a pretty
very
good
nice
example of having the short grass, the golf course grass.
Yeah, very forgiving there. Eric just gonna flick it up there. Puts it a little longer than he wanted to. Nate running at it just off the basket. Simon hit just a little low, right on the front of the pan.
This was a good putt by Eric.
Eric with the comeback three. Nice save. And there you are for your tap-in birdie. Very nice. And the rest of the Nate and Simon gonna tap in their pars. And we're on to hole 5. 378 feet, par 3. This one's, what's the most likely line on this one?
This likely here, you're going to see a lot of people stay to the right side of those trees. They're trying to come in just beneath the branches and skip out the base of the trees.
Yeah, there is OB on the right there as well.
Yeah, there's OB on the right. When I played it, there weren't any flags up. You can only see the line. It actually was a completely different look with the flags down. But I tried to skip it over there. I didn't get as big as a skip as I was looking for, but still looking at it.
Yeah, so far everyone's playing the hyzer line just like you're saying. Get right into those trees. Just trying to get a good skip up to the basket.
Yeah, it's pretty safe coming from right to left on this hole. There's not a lot of danger to the left of the basket.
And like you said before, without that wind, there's not a whole lot of danger of turning it over into that out of bounds.
Yeah.
As long as you can skip it under those trees.
This was a headwind putt, not a very good release.
Just a little low.
It's a good putt by Eric.
Eric with the birdie putt. Simon for his birdie. Makes good. And Nate for his bird.
Yep, everybody picked up the birdie, except for me.
And cleaning up the par. Alright, we're on to hole 6. This one's 437 foot par 3. Looks like mostly another hyzer shot.
Yeah, this one doesn't have a whole lot of trouble. There's OB left of the basket by about 35 feet as a cart path. That tree is just about pin high, the one that Simon hit. He was coming in right towards the basket. Probably would have been a little bit long, but still has a pretty decent look for a 2.
And then there is the tall grass on the right is OB. In the event you did turn it over a little too much. Eric kind of flirted with it, but he came back out of that. So
yeah, there wasn't too much. There was a headwind off the tee shot. It wasn't too strong, so I didn't see really anybody go over in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the past, we're used to throwing the most over sable disc in our bag as hard as we can on a shot like this.
Yeah.
Just so we don't turn it over, but today was more of the glass calm open.
And here's Will with his drive. That's a familiar disc. Which one was that?
That was a 400G D1, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, since there's a little bit of headwind, I went with a little bit more overstable.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been a little bit long over the basket, but I was still just inside or just around the circle's edge.
Simon
makes a really good putt right here.
Crazy
off the tree
birdie.
branch.
Yeah, through the tree. Nothing but net. Very nice birdie from Simon. Nate for his birdie putt. Just played it low. Will
This
for his
putt,
birdie.
This putt's got a little bit of right to left wind, and I was supposed to putt it a little bit lower, obviously, and the wind just lifted it just a couple inches.
Just right off the top. So Eric, Will, and Nate will tap in their pars. And we are on to hole 7. This one, 435-foot par 3. This one's a little bit of a different look, a little change up.
Yeah, this one's a pretty tough par 3. There's OB right out of the basket by 30 feet or so. There's 2 trees that are kind of blocking the Anheuser. You have to go like 350 feet off the tee box and then get it to turn. You don't see a whole lot of people go around the tree. Simon just went over them.
With the putter.
With the putter. There was a slight headwind off the tee pad when we started to drive. That's a pretty common to see somebody hit that tree.
Nate looks like he's trying to go right at it. Hits
just a couple branches. Yeah, that looked like a great shot right out of his hand.
And what are you throwing here?
This is a 400 Series D3. It was actually in my girlfriend's bag. She has the best rollers.
It was a very good roller. Just went a little bit, just rolled back a little bit. You went right by the pin within a couple feet. Just kind of rounded out a little bit.
Didn't realize it was that close.
And there's Eric with his upshot. Nate just pitching up underneath the basket. Actually, a pretty good run, too.
Yeah, almost made that.
Simon running at it.
Simon almost makes this one.
Just off the top.
And this is the same exact looking putt as the last hole, just a little bit too high.
Will tapping in his par. Nate for his par.
That was probably one of the harder par 3s of the day, I would say.
Yeah, so that one was, I believe, an all-star par. Alright, here we are, hole 8. This one, 279 feet. Probably the shortest hole we've encountered so far.
Yeah, this one you see a lot of people take the straight route. I know Simon takes a little sidearm. There's OB left of the basket. Probably 30 feet. You can see that creek that's right in front of the tee. Goes towards the basket. There's that golf green on the right with some short grass, and there's also some long grass towards the basket.
Eric going straight at it. Very well executed.
He's probably thrown that shot a couple times.
Nate throwing, I guess, some kind of mid-range. Right at it. It kind of runs a little straight, but still a really nice shot.
Yep.
Right in the gap.
Yeah, I'm throwing an H1 on this shot.
Just playing
Just keeping it low and
hyzer line.
Yep, I'm trying to play for a little bit of a skip. I know the grass is pretty long right there. So I know that it kind of just pushes me over there as long as I don't hit the base of a tree.
Simon actually skipped off the top of that one. Will for his birdie putt. Very nice.
Got that one.
Simon for the comeback 3. Barely hangs in there on the left side.
Yeah.
You can always tell by the look on his face whether or not he knew whether that should have gone in or not. Nate for his birdie. And routine birdie, I'm sure, on this hole for Eric McCabe. Here we are, hole 9. This one's quite beastly. 799-foot par 4. Quite a bit of hazards on this one as well. With the
Yeah, there was a pretty good tailwind off the tee pad coming down the hill. The last couple years, they used to play opposite. You can see Eric goes OB slightly right there. But the basket used to be right where that golf tee pad is in the background, and the tee pad was where the basket is.
So they just reversed this.
So they reversed this hole completely to flow with the actual golf course.
Nice.
And people watching who used to watch the Glass Balloon Open videos in the past, you'll notice that a lot of the holes are different, and they changed the course to make it permanent so it'll flow with the golf course.
Nice. How far would you say you pumped that one? That was a really nice shot.
Probably through that downhill with a tailwind around 550, I think.
Very nice. And of course Simon wants to match that.
Simon got me about by a couple feet on this.
He stands it up, flirting with that tree on the right, but
Yeah.
barely gets through it and still ends up with a very nice shot.
Yeah. Yeah, through 400G D2 right there.
And it's a tricky upshot because the basket is actually on that hill.
Yep.
So you got OB short in the water, and there's actually a couple of sand piles behind it that are marked OB.
Yep. You can't really tell from the video, but there's the flagged off area behind the basket, probably close to the circle's edge. Pretty easy to find the out of bounds area with a little bit of wind or an errant shot.
Yeah, and Simon just throws his putter up there, just trying to not
Nice
get
and
it
easy.
too deep.
My upshot right here, I throw a 750 H1. I'm trying to keep it at the bottom of the hill and then skip it up there.
Pretty well executed.
Yep.
And Eric just trying to put on the basket without going too far behind it.
Yeah, the grass up on that hill is pretty long, so it you can run at it pretty easy or play towards the basket pretty aggressive and know that it's not going to move really fast.
And Simon, very nice with the birdie. Couldn't have been too easy with I'm sure there was a little bit of wind rolling off the hill.
There was a little bit of wind up there. I can't remember which way it was going from where that flag in the background looks. It looks like it was a little bit of a headwind.
And you with the nice birdie on that hole. Eric tapping in for well, I guess he took a 5 on that one because he did go beyond his drive.
From his out of bounds.
And Nate cleaning up with the par. Alright, here we are moving on to hole 10, 329 feet, par 3.
Yeah, this hole's one of the tougher, although it's one of the shorter holes, it's definitely a tougher par 3 just because the OB on the right is fairly close to the basket. It's not necessarily a blind shot, but you can't see the bottom of the basket, so it's tough to see how far your disc is away from it, and you can't see where the long grass is to the right side of the basket.
Yeah, and there's no skipping out of that grass, so you really have to pin it right against it so you don't skip too far left.
Yeah, you can see
and I
that
believe Nate gets a pretty bad skip just because it's the slope that those basket's on.
Yeah, you can see that me and Eric and Nate all play a little too wide to the left.
Just kind of trying to...
It's always better to be safe.
Yeah. That skip, man, that is a crazy skip.
Yeah, there's some short grass, a couple dirt.
And Eric kind of running at it, but just getting under there for the par.
Yeah, this one going uphill, I try to just putt it a little bit harder and try to give it a chance.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose.
Oh, Nate just getting in and out of that pan right there.
Yep, he's all around it. Simon with a good drive.
Rewarded with the birdie. And see Eric cleaning up his par. And Nate commented to Eric, course designer, how he applauded him on the basket placement just because of how bad that skip was.
Yeah, it's really easy for I think for designing a course to just put that basket right in the middle of the walking path and the long grass, which would have made it a little bit of an easier par 3 just because you can throw it out wide and know you can play towards the basket pretty easy. But
yeah,
with it being towards the grass a little bit more, it's gonna make it harder.
Yeah.
Make people think a little bit at least.
So this one's 410 feet, par 3. There is OB all the way down, protecting that fairway on the right. And Simon gets back in just over.
Yeah, this was a 400G D3. We had a right to left wind. It was helping push towards the basket. And I was really trying to land it just by the flags of the outer bounds. I knew that I could skip with the golf course fairway grass. Nate turns his over just a little bit too much. I think that one more degree of hyzer coming into the basket and probably would have skipped in really nice.
Eric kind of stances up a little bit, but he gets that nice little tree kick. Get him right back in bounds.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Lose a little distance, but he didn't lose a stroke, so. And he still gives it a run at it. Just under the pan. Nate from his OB spot. Running at it. Oof, just went right around it. Simon for his birdie putt.
Simon with a good drive.
Very nice.
On this course, it's always nice to pick up the birdies on the 450-foot holes. There's probably a handful of them that it's definitely an advantage to be able to throw farther.
Nice. And Will with his birdie. And Eric for par.
This is another good example of basket placement. It's really easy to make a hole like this, especially on a golf course. It doesn't have a whole lot of challenges, I guess. Using the path the whole way out of bounds left, and the basket on the right side. You're trying to play down the path the entire way and then skip it towards the basket. It's not too far away from the path, probably 30 to 35 feet. I'm throwing a 400G D3 here. Been working on my sidearm a little bit over the winter, and I gave it a little bit too much angle, maybe the wrong disc, but gave myself still a chance.
Yeah.
At least it's safe.
And Eric just piercing through that gap. Not sure what he threw there, but it worked out perfect.
Yeah, same exact shot as hole 8.
Yeah.
Hole 8.
Nate with his sidearm. Gives himself a look at it.
It's a good shot. I had a left to right wind. I had to get around that tree. It was right in the middle of the basket. And that's not really one that I was trying to run at really hard, but if I happened to putt it a little bit too hard, it might have gone in.
And Nate with his birdie. Simon for his birdie look. Gets it. Almost tried to spit out the back there. He got caught by that last chain. And Eric
With a nice drive.
gets the bird. And you're just cleaning up the par. Alright, so we are on hole 13. 507 feet, par 4. This one's pretty tricky. You got the fence all the way down on the left.
Yeah, this one we had a tailwind off the tee. Simon rips his drive all the way down the OB on the right side and then skips in past the basket. You actually have more of a chance of being inbounds the farther you go towards the basket on this hole. You can see that it kind of opens up. And from this angle you can tell with the short grass right there, the line with the tree in the middle of the fairway right there, it's probably about 20 to 25 feet. And then gets a little bit wider towards the basket. And then when you're pin high with the basket, I'd say it's about 45 feet all the way out wide.
Oh, nice. So, like you're saying, the further you run at it, the more likely you are to stay in bounds.
Yep. And once again, I'm throwing the 400G D3 on this one. And I really thought I was going out of bounds when I released it. I thought that I threw it with a little bit too much hyzer with the wind that was out there. And looks like I got a little bit of a good kick, a little bit of a kick off the tree.
Nice.
But the grass is fairly long on this side. This is the rough side of the golf course, although it's pretty nice cut for disc golf. Simon was really surprised with being that far off the tee. It was definitely a crush.
Oh, just off front left. And with the great drive, got the birdie. Oh, actually, no, I forgot. This is a par 4.
They counted this as a par 4.
So, got the eagle. That's what the caddy book says. I'm
Yeah.
not so sure, but we have to go by what they say. So, there you are. And
Yep.
everyone else gets a birdie then.
Par is all relative.
Exactly. All right, hole 14. Par 4, 646 feet.
Yeah, this one, it's OB with the long grass on the left side and the out of bounds on the right. Veers a little bit to the right going towards the basket. We had a little bit of a headwind driving off of this tee. I threw the 400G D3. And I thought that I was closer to the longer grass, actually. It kind of is a blind shot over the hill. You can't see really where you land.
And don't worry about that guy laying in the grass. That's Stuart Mullenberg. He's okay. He's just taking some pictures.
He's pretty good at taking pictures.
Yeah, you need to check out The Flight Record. It's his new photography project, theflightrecord.com. Eric kind of pretty much probably didn't plan on it hyzering quite that much. Lost a lot of distance off of that.
Yeah, this is one of those holes where if you're off the tee anywhere between 350 and 500 feet, you're probably going to be about the same second shot no matter what. Nate gets a little bit of a, he had a couple less spins, you probably would have been in bounds.
Yeah. Eric just playing out wide, trying to sneak it under that tree up to the basket.
Yep.
Very nicely done.
And this is a pretty good example. I think I outdrove Eric by a good little bit on that hole, and we get the same exact score. It's not gonna make or break a tournament, this hole.
And even Nate with not very much of a run up. I mean, it's not really necessary, as we can see here. You're just playing the standstill. What did you throw at that?
That was a 750 series M2, actually.
Oh, nice.
Had a little bit of a left to right wind, and went with the mid range on the upshot.
Simon just putting the putter up there.
Yep.
And the any shot. Eric left with a little bit for that, but makes a really nice birdie attempt. There you are with the tree right up against you, but
yeah,
didn't seem to be any problem getting the birdie.
Yeah, not too far.
At least
the tree looks closer in the video than it was in real life.
And Nate here, I guess that would just be his par.
Yeah.
Par save. Obviously not too thrilled about it. Simon with the tap-in birdie. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright, here we are on to hole 15. 433 feet, par 3. Lizotte's still got a one-stroke lead on you here.
Yeah, playing this hole in practice, we actually had a pretty big headwind. Throwing the 400G D3 on this hole. And in practice, I couldn't get it past that tree on the right because of how windy it was. So coming up to the hole, I thought that I had to throw it really hard. And
overdrove it by
I did throw it really hard.
Tombstone into that soft grass.
Threw it really far past the basket.
Simon right off the bat knew that wasn't quite what he wanted to happen, but it ended up not being a very bad drive. I
mean, he had a really good distance on it. He got all the way up to pin high.
Eric kind of going straight at it. I remember him not being thrilled that he early released that one, but still stood up just enough to stay in bounds.
Yep.
And Nate last to tee. Pretty much stands it up on a line right at the basket.
Yeah, that was a great shot.
Hyzer's out very nice for him. Gives him a good skip.
Perfect. This is also one of those shots where not really running at it, just trying to...
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous. You don't want it to hit the hill wrong and roll all the way back down. So
yeah, no reason to...
Eric pretty much doing the same thing. Kind of running at it, mostly just trying to put it under the basket. Simon with his birdie look. Unfortunately, pretty consistent on that hot, hitting low on that pan. But Nate gets the bird on that great drive. And you, McCabe, and Simon tapping in your pars. Hole 16. 359 feet, par 3. This one's kind of a tricky look.
Yeah, this one, the branches right off the tee box give you a little bit more to think of. Although you're probably not going to see any player hit them. It's kind of gets into the back of your mind of keeping it a little bit lower maybe. I notice if I threw off the right side of the tee box that it's a little bit more of a straighter gap and I have more of a ceiling to play with. Through my 750 series M3, we had a little bit of a tailwind. and I knew that if I just threw it with a slight hyzer at the basket, it's going to stand up and go pretty straight for me.
Nice. And what, you got about 370 feet out of that, maybe a little more with that M3.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Simon went with the fairway driver right here. I thought that he was going to go mid-range, especially with the mid-range or putter, especially with the tailwind.
Yeah, he did go B there on that. And Eric gives it a little run. Nate also running at it. Simon here.
Simon probably a little upset that he just went out of bounds, knowing that he doesn't want to take a 4 across the course.
No worries. He'll just save the 3 from out there.
Makes a really good putt.
Look at him. His expressions when that happens is just so funny. No rush. We'll wait. There you are. That's how you birdie that hole. Just throw a mid-range at it, right?
Yeah.
Overdrive it a little bit and get the comeback. Nate with his par tap in. Eric with the sing. Here we are, hole 17. 387 feet, par 3. You actually tied Simon with that last birdie.
Yeah, coming into 17, I think 17 is one of the harder par 3s on the course. There's out of bounds right. You got to keep it pretty low off the tee box. And you need to go just past that tree around the right side or below it, and then go about another 70 feet or 60, 70 feet towards the basket.
Yeah.
Nate gets a pretty good drive going fairly straight around the tree.
Probably just plays it a little wide right.
Yeah, this is one of those holes where you just want to get as far as you can pin high with the basket and probably get a good putt back towards it. The harder you are playing towards the basket, kind of like Simon and I's drive right there, you're going to be flirting with that tree and hitting it more than not.
Yeah, so you and Simon both got taken by that tree. Eric looks like he played a little more left.
Yeah, there's also a route to go left to right. It's a little bit harder. I never practiced a shot.
Eric goes up and over with the flick for his up shot. And you give it a run. Just a little wide right, looks like. Simon just over the top of the basket. And Nate also giving it a run just low, right in the center. And there's Simon for his par. Eric playing it right side. Gets that jump out. And there you are for your par. Nate tapping par and Eric with the bogey. And finally, hole 18. 383 feet, par 3. This one's got an interesting look as well with the OB grass on the right.
Yeah, you can't really see where the out of bounds, where the long grass comes in towards the basket from the tee pad. If the wind was different, I probably would have gone with a giant hyzer around that tree just in front of me. But I went with a 750 X1, really overstable disc, and I didn't turn it over at all. And it ended up just playing safe out to the left. For me, there was no point to really play straight towards the basket and really attack it. But I felt okay with that shot. Nate almost did the same thing. He probably played with a little bit less stable disc than I did, but we're still both way out to the left.
Yeah, a little short end to the left.
Simon takes the hyzer route, even though the wind was a little bit off, I think, for the shot. He threw it a little bit higher and a little bit harder. I think he ended up a little short.
Yeah. And Eric with the local route. but unfortunately catches one of the early trees. And Eric just playing the upshot. Short upshot for the par.
This is trying not to do anything crazy towards the end of the round. Just want to get out of there with a decent score.
And Nate from pretty far out cans the bird.
Cans it.
Nice way to finish the round.
He had a lot of his putts were close to that distance, and it's nice to see him make one towards the end of the round.
Absolutely. And Simon with his birdie putt. Unfortunately, he was on that pan all around. Eric tapping in his par. Simon doing the same. And like you said, nothing crazy. Just finish the round out with your par.
Yep.
And after round one, we were looking at you and Simon tied up at 11 down. So that puts you at second place, correct? Going into round two?
Yep, I'm tied for second. I'll be on the top of the second card. I'm a four-way tie, and Jeremy Coling shot the hot round with a 46.
Very nice. Well, we appreciate having you out for giving us some commentary on round one, and wish you good luck in round two.
Thanks.